Hello, this is Max. This is a story about a chance encounter of four people that changed their destinies. You can subscribe to the channel after watching. It helps us a lot in realizing the content. Jack Doheny, a former convict, finds himself standing naked and solitary by the ocean. Moments later, he plunges into the water, embracing the crashing waves. On December 20th, Charlie, a former priest, checks into the Holiday Lodge, a budget hotel. In the privacy of his room, he closes the curtains and contemplates his reflection in the mirror, holding an unloaded pistol. As he washes his face, memories of his life as a newlywed resurface, reminding him of his wife's question about being her husband. Afterward, he loads his gun with 2 bullets and hears a barking dog outside. Meanwhile, Johnny, a single mother and exotic dancer, rushes to a nearby phone booth to call her son, Billy. When the line fails, she borrows a stranger's phone, sharing her excitement about a promising first date with David, who has promised to take her to Paris. However, David disappoints her by leaving her at her doorstep after a lackluster date. Alone in her room, Johnny gazes at travel magazines, realizing her dreams may remain unfulfilled. To make matters worse, her dog, Rudy, goes missing. In another part of the city, Cordy Doolittle, a distracted mortician, accidentally hits a dog while driving his hearse. Unable to start the hearse, he takes the injured dog home with him. After tending to the dog's wounds, he names it Lucky due to its minor injury. Jack boards a bus and unexpectedly encounters his former boss, Randall, who hands him a suitcase filled with the money he owes him. Upon opening the suitcase later, Jack discovers a brochure for Wild Velvet, a gentleman's club. Meanwhile, Charlie, sitting in his parked car, notices Lexus, a transgender courtesan. Charlie comments on Lexus's low rates, leading to a conversation about Lexus's gender reassignment operation. When Charlie offers Lexus a way out of his miserable life by offering his life savings and a pistol, Lexus rejects the offer, considering it insane. An argument ensues and Lexus departs. Cordy, a mortician, finishes preparing a body and attends a funeral. Johnny, in a hotel room, takes an illegal substance before heading out to post missing flyers for Rudy. Following the brochure from the suitcase, Jack arrives at Wild Velvet, where Velvet Larry introduces the main attraction, Scarlett, Johnny's stage name. Uncomfortable with the situation, Jack leaves during Scarlett's performance. He dreams of a time when he learned he had gastric cancer on the bus ride home, only to be awakened by the bus driver due to a nosebleed. On December 22nd, Cordy visits a loan office, only to be informed that his loan request was denied due to his father's outstanding debt. He attempts to call Mrs. Wilson, a woman who owes him money, but she explains her inability to pay due to her husband's unemployment. The compassionate mortician advises her to use the money for her children's Christmas gifts instead. Unexpectedly, Charlie arrives at the mortuary, despite it being closed, and expresses his need for a coffin. After choosing a glossy wooden coffin, Charlie hands Cordy the gun and asks him to destroy it. Cordy initially considers it due to his urgent financial needs, but ultimately refuses, driven by his desire to prevent a life from ending. Charlie then goes to a church and vents his frustrations to God. He reminisces about the loving moments with his wife in the car, moments before a tragic accident claimed her life. In a diner, waitress Sally wakes Charlie as they are closing and offers him a slice of pie. Though Charlie wishes to share it with her, she declines due to dietary concerns. After the meal, Charlie offers Sally a ride home. She reveals her divorce and expresses her gratitude with a kiss for his kindness. At Wild Velvet, Johnny faces pressure from her boss Larry, who insists she work on Christmas Eve despite her need to be with her son. Jack follows Johnny outside. Jack lends her his blazer and engages in a conversation. Larry calls Johnny back to work, but before leaving, Johnny tells Jack to request Scarlett and wait for her in the blue room. In the blue room, Johnny performs a sensual dance, making Jack uncomfortable. Although he pushes her away at first, they eventually share a tender hug while slow dancing. In her hotel room, Johnny calls her comatose son, and the next day, Cordy notices her flyers about her missing dog and removes them. Johnny shoplifts a toy and Jack follows her. To protect her, Jack pretends to be her companion and pays for the item. He gives her the toy and invites her to lunch. During their meal, Jack gives Johnny an origami crane. She shares that her mother told her that her father died in a boating accident before she was born. Jack asks if she believes her father might still be alive. and Johnny confides that she sees her father in her dreams. Noting that his eyes resembled Jack's, she wonders if her father would have taken her on adventures if she had been a better daughter. Meanwhile, Cordy attends a dating event and meets Nicole, but the experience overwhelms him, causing him to pass out. At the diner, Charlie encounters Sally again, and she apologizes for her previous behavior. Charlie offers to provide her with rides whenever she wants company, but her ex-husband arrives to pick her up. Later, Charlie goes to a car wash, briefly leaving his car unattended. When he returns, he discovers his car has been stolen, finding red sequins in his parking spot, leading him to suspect Lexus. Charlie returns to the spot where he first met Lexus and eventually meets a man who claims to be the courtesan's doctor. He explains Lexus's struggles with gender identity and directs Charlie to the geisha dungeon to find him. At Wild Velvet, Johnny and Jack meet again and communicate through a transparent window. Johnny reveals that Jack appeared in her dreams, running from someone. Jack surprises her with 2 tickets to anywhere in the world, based on their earlier conversation. However, despite Johnny's tearful reluctance, Jack attempts to persuade her to accept the gift. He explains that his time is limited due to his illness. Johnny's curiosity is piqued by Jack's kindness, and she becomes interested in his true identity. The ex-convict then confesses that he spent 25 years in prison, hoping for his wife's visit, only to discover that she had passed away. Realizing that Jack's story resonates with her own life and suspecting he might be her father, Johnny breaks down and tearfully asks the ex-convict to leave. This prompts the bouncers to intervene and escort him out of the building. Later, Johnny tries to contact the hospital to speak with Billy but receives no answer. She rushes to the hospital to see her unconscious son and give him the toy. Billy briefly opens his eyes but quickly closes them, leading Johnny to call the nurses. Unfortunately, the doctor explains that Billy's blinking was just a reflex and delivers a grim prognosis that he might not have much time left, leaving Johnny furious. In her state of confusion and desperation, Johnny makes inappropriate advances on the doctor, hoping to use her body to save her son. The doctor refuses, leaving Johnny distraught. Outside the hospital, Jack's nose is bleeding as he watches Johnny hail a taxi. He then enters the hospital to visit Billy and finally sees the condition of his grandson. In Wild Velvet, Johnny prepares for her shift, and she receives a call from Cordy about Rudy. Later, she goes to the mortician's home to reunite with her missing dog. She apologizes for not having the reward money but promises to pay him next week. Cordy kindly declines the reward and suggests they share a genuine HUD, which they do. After a heartfelt conversation and a sense of ease in each other's company, Cordy invites Johnny to stay for the night, which he gladly accepts. On Christmas Eve morning, Cordy goes out to buy roses for Johnny, only to find that she has left. He retrieves her number from a discarded flyer to contact her. Later, while performing her exotic pole dance routine in Wild Velvet, Johnny is embarrassed to see Cordy in the audience watching her. Upon returning home, she finds Cordy sleeping by her door. He awakens while she's bathing, washes her back, and asks why she left that morning. She explains that she did it because men usually leave her first, so she saved him the trouble. As Johnny shares her life story as a single mom who works as an exotic dancer with a comatose child in the hospital, Cordy empathizes, revealing his solitary life as a mortician with a puppeteering hobby and difficulty forming connections. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at the geisha dungeon and meets Lexus, who invites him to his apartment, where he has stored the ex-priest's money. As Lexus hands over the bag of money, Charlie notices the scars on his wrists, confirming what he had heard earlier from another man. After reclaiming his money, Charlie decides to give Lexus the funds for his surgery. However, Lexus grabs a pistol and points it at him, understanding Charlie's need for love after finding a picture of Charlie and his wife in the car. Longing for love himself, Lexus attempts to kiss Charlie, but the ex-priest pushes him away. This reminds Lexus of a past rejection when someone rejected him because he wasn't a woman. As Lexus reflects on his tragic history, he raises the pistol and doing the unthinkable. Subsequently, the authorities arrive to collect the lifeless body. In the meantime, Cordy invites Johnny to join her for a ride in a shopping cart through the streets, deepening their romantic connection. While Johnny gets close to Cordy, Billy remains in the hospital in critical condition. Jack enters the hospital room, asserting that he is the boy's grandfather. When the doctors refuse him entry, the former convict does his best to locate Johnny. Jack arrives at Wild Velvet, only to find it closed, leaving him feeling helpless and visibly affected by his illness. Meanwhile, in the hospital, the doctors pronounce Johnny's death and cover his body with a sheet. In a church, Charlie questions God about the challenges he's facing. He then envisions himself as a priest and encounters his wife in a graveyard, where she tells him that it's not his time to depart. Upon waking, the ex-priest converses with a nun who wonders if he will ever return to serving the church. Charlie leaves the church and realizes that it's Christmas. As he catches the falling snowflakes, he smiles genuinely for the first time. That same morning, Johnny rushes to the hospital upon hearing the news about her son. As she grieves, she apologizes for not calling him the previous night. Outside the back door of Wild Velvet, Johnny is discovered lifeless on a pile of snow, clutching a photo of a young Johnny and his wife. In his afterlife, he enjoys a day at the beach with his grandson. In the hospital, the nurse informs Johnny that an anonymous individual has settled her son's hospital bill. She then hands Johnny an envelope left by the unknown benefactor. Inside, Johnny finds a paper crane and 2 plane tickets, which Jack had attempted to give her a few days earlier. In a diner, Charlie reunites with Sally, who informs him that she and her ex-husband have finalized their divorce. She then asks him out, and he happily agrees. Meanwhile, a concerned Cordy contacts the hotel where Johnny was staying and learns that she and Rudy have checked out. Later, he performs a puppet show for his young audience, unaware that Johnny is among the spectators. On his way home, Cordy stops to sit on a bench, where he suddenly spots Johnny and Rudy across the street. The couple shares a passionate kiss, and Johnny asks Cordy to accompany her to Paris. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.